Hello and welcome back, or welcome for the first time to Meaning Seeker. I am a professional actor and a professionally trained writer, and I see meaning in fictional stories, movies, TV shows, books, etc. Maybe they're not always there. Maybe the meaning I see isn't always there. I certainly seek meaning and I see meaning. Sometimes it's not there, but I think it sort of is, whether or not the writer intended to put it there. But I'm assuming you probably are like me, or if not, then at the very least you love the movies, films, TV shows or books and topics that I'm likely to explore in this channel. Meaning Seeker is on all of the podcast mediums. Please comment below if you agree or disagree with any of the meaning I see in any episode. Doesn't have to just be these watch along / commentary episodes. At the moment I'm aiming to do one video a month, if it's possible, to respond to perhaps meaning you see that I've missed or why you don't agree with me. Let's get on with the legend of Vance. Now, for the time being, the way I'm going to try and help the video of the movie, TV show, whatever, be playing at the same time for me as it is for you, I will start with a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. At the beginning of the G sound of go, I will do my best to press play. So let's go for that. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we are off to a flying start with the legend of Vance. I only first watched this movie in 2022 on Disney Plus, and this is probably the 8th time, approximately, that I've watched it. I did watch it twice in about a week or two, but then it got taken off Disney Plus, which is one of the many reasons that I'm still going to buy movies digitally, obviously, but I'm going to make sure that I've got all my favourite films, TV shows, etc. on disc, because I'm very pro physical media, and I do have most of them. The Legend of Vance is only one of 3 or 4 that I don't own physically. Yeah. Okay, so it's starting. We see the number 31. I don't know if that's relevant. And number 1 on the club. And we begin the story. Obviously, I'm hoping you've watched this movie at least once. And that's the same for any Meaning Seeker episode, because these podcasts are spoiler-ridden, let's say, put it that way. So yeah, if you haven't watched it at least once, I would encourage you to watch it once on your own and come back. Okay, so this is our narrator. It's an elderly gentleman, and he clearly enjoys or loves playing golf on his own, walking in beautiful surroundings. But as you can see, he spends more time in the trees than the squirrels. Okay. Okay. So when I first watched this, I thought this is an interesting beginning. And even more interesting when the person we learn is our narrator, that he's having a heart attack. And it's his 5th in 10 years, 5th heart attack. I love that he's got a smile on his face. His wife there's a fair question from his wife. Why play a game that seems destined or trying to kill you? Okay, so now we're going back to just before the Great Depression in Savannah, Georgia, and we learn in a second that our narrator is a young boy at that time, and he's at his job during the scene, and he's practicing his putting with a walking stick and a cup. Tin cup? A metal cup. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a...
Now, when I was growing up, every town had its heroes, and ours was Ranulph Jr.,
Ranulph Jr.
who was a born winner. How I wanted to be just like him.
And that's how it should be with the hero archetype, right? There should be an admirable hero, a real hero. Or I don't believe people can be heroes, but if we work hard enough, we can become worthy of a connection with the hero archetype. But the hero archetype, I think, is beyond mortal, beyond the mortal coil. But nevertheless, mortals can become worthy to connect with the hero, and they have to upkeep the health of that connection, just like we need to upkeep the health of anything, right? So the young boy would sneak into the private members club of golf and occasionally put the life of the members at risk. Okay, so we're going over the main character, the narrator, as a boy, and his scrapbook. And he's documenting Juna, and that he became on the verge of being a prominent, successful and famous top-level worldwide golfer, but that Juna himself said that his greatest victory was falling in love and capturing the mutual affection of his wife, who's a local aristocrat. And we see what's so clear, we've seen it in a lot of stories, right? That their love, their attraction, everything is equal. And Charlize Theron's character is one of the main characters, just as Matt Damon's Juna is. And life is amazing at this point. He's got everything he could ever want, and he's a great role model to the young boy who's our narrator as an old man. But then the First World War hits.
It was a patriotic call to arms to fight the war to end all wars. Juna and everyone else in town believed it was his destiny to lead the young men of Savannah into battle.
The problem with destiny as well, I'd say, in general,
It was to be his crowning
Juna
glory.
believed it would be his crowning glory.
With a shock and sorrow of what was to come.
Again, the mortal realm is not like the potentially godlike realm of the archetypes. Because in the First World War, the young men that went out to fight it were told this lie, this propagandistic lie, that it would be like a fairy tale and that the good guys would triumph and there would be only growth and no pain and no bloodshed and no tragedy. But the truth is the truth, whether we fall under the spell of a delusion or not. The truth is the truth. That's something I believe. I'm always trying to update my perspective, but that is one that's been with me for a while now. And that stance makes me more interested and passionate and driven to pursue and get as close to the truth as a subjective being, a human being, can get, because the truth is objectivity itself, and we couldn't be more subjective. Okay, so we see that it was not what he was promised.
Confused, broken, and unable to face a return to a hero's welcome.
And he got chronic post-traumatic stress disorder because Juna was the only survivor in his platoon, presumably made up of at least a couple of his hometown
But definitely
peers,
being a woman of the
but I
South
don't know that
was
for sure.
considered
But
worse than desertion. And she moved on with her life,
so his wife
dedicating herself to her father's dream.
presumably knew that he survived, but he doesn't come home. And her father, as successful can be, has invested a great deal of his wealth in a beautiful island just off Savannah and made a 5 or 6 star, perhaps, golf resort for the rich and presumably famous. And then one day, our young boy narrator, who's an old man as well, he's an old man as narrator, he spots Juna return home after years away, presumably. I should also point out that the old man, who's the boy during this story, from a Carl Jung perspective, Carl Jung's psychology, I would say represents the inner child in each of us. The young boy and the old man is still an old man and a young boy in the story, but at the same time, I see that the young boy and the old man represent the inner child within each of us. And also Juna's wife, estranged wife, at the current point, also represents Juna's anima, or the feminine side of Juna, just like a man in a film would often represent the prominent female main character's animus, her inner male, and thereby the young boy, old man narrator, not just being his own character, he's also the inner child of both. Okay, so now the Great Depression is hit just before or just as this top level expensive resort, which Charlize Theron's character has invested most of his wealth, most of his money in, has opened and no one's turned up. Presumably, most of their potential customers can't afford to go there now. But then, just like the shell shock, quote unquote, now referred to as post-traumatic stress, I'd imagine most people were going through some level or some form of their own unique post-traumatic stress when the Great Depression hit. Again, then we see Charlize Theron's father commit suicide because he believes he'll lose all of his money from the investment in the island golf resort. And then we see our boy narrator and his family, and they have a big house, and I think his father was relatively well off, middle class, upper middle class, but then he lets our narrator as a boy know that he's got to go and share a bedroom with his sibling because they're going to have to rent out a bedroom to help ends meet and to survive the Great Depression, or at least this phase of it. And then we see the funeral, and we see Charlize Theron pouring the ashes of her father out by the river just as she swoons and faints. I really love that everything goes wrong very early in this story. Just I'd like it to get to that quicker. Not always, but... So the local politicians and bureaucrats have let themselves into her father's mansion. And basically, just to remind you, they are trying to buy her father's newly opened golf resort at a fraction of the cost it cost her father. And now, of course, this is the whole thing that caused her father to die. So we learn a lot about her character now. that she is resilient and relentless. She's not going to give up without a fight. And they're cornering her now, trying to fill her with fear that she is ruined. She has no chance of not being ruined. So the Great Depression is a time of great despair, obviously, and they're trying to capitalize on that. They're trying to make it great for them. And they're cornering her, and then she has to think fast. Okay, so you could say she's bluffing right now, but at the same time, you already know she believes in herself, and this is the plan she's going to try and make happen. And she clearly believes in herself. I'm going to sell everything I own except for the island golf resort, and I'm going to get the two greatest American golfers at this current time, most famous, most decorated, to compete in a first-class, top-level golf exhibition competition. And the motivation she'll give those two famous golfers is the carrot, the motivation of, I think it's a $10,000 prize. I always want to know how much a certain amount of money long ago would be worth today. And I did Google it a while back. I can't quite remember. But I'm sure, even though it won't be that much probably, I bet it will be, if this was set now, it would be millions of dollars. And enough millions to make both of these top level golfers want to take part.
No, I didn't. But I'm not clear how this is an urgent matter for the American Red Cross.
So she said it was about charity. That's how she charmed and tricked her way in. See, she's got the trickster in her. And we saw that our narrator does too as a young boy when he'd sneak into the golf course. She's trying to appeal to this golfer's ego, comparing him to a young god. But I think what gets through to him is how he can inspire others by taking part.
You say he's been invited to play at Crew Island next month?
But obviously, he also is tempted because she's told him his rival has already said yes, and he hasn't because she goes to visit him next. But it's very clever, obviously. One minute. And this chap, as you can guess, is a bit of a womanizer, to put it mildly. Pardon me. I always love this sort of scene, and there's so many different examples in movies, obviously, where someone will not give in to despair. They will not give up, and they have to use their cunning, use their charm, use their knowledge of whatever character's ego or weakness or what they know, what that character knows can speak to them and make them want to do what the character wants them to do. But it's a great example of resilience, anyway. Okay, so the local politician is trying to turn Savannah against the idea of this first-class exhibition because it's during the Depression. But of course, it's manipulation. They're trying to do that because they think the long-term outcome is that it will make them money, because she will be forced to cancel the competition and sell the island for pittance, for a fraction of what it's worth. But clearly, the local people do want the competition, but they want a hero and a local hero that they can get behind to also be part of it. And the politician sees an opportunity and instantly suggests a name, a famous golfer. Silence, crickets. He's 80 years old. And then we've got our narrator here as a boy, and he recommends Juna to his friends, and his friends aren't buying it. But we've got a brave young boy here, strong with the fool archetype, but the fool archetype is always the precursor to the hero. So the boy is just reminding them all true things about Juna. It was a while ago, but he's still a young man. And it sounds like they're interested. Okay, so that local politician does know he's around, but he's heard that Juna has become a drunk. And the young boy says, I know where he is. And then his father stops him. And then his father thinks better of it, says, okay, go and talk to him. Go and ask him if he will join this competition. I don't know where I got the courage, he said, when he was a young boy. But I think it's because Juna was connected with the positive archetype of the hero before he went to war. And it inspired this young boy. And that's the way it should be with children. They should have someone that they can model themselves on in a way, at least in hard work, sincerity and all that. But as we see, Juna is far off the path now. And the boy is doubting himself. The stupidest idea I ever had. But again, he really is a local young boy whose father used to be good friends with Juna. But he's also the inner child. He's that part of you, part of me, part of all of us, who says, I don't think it's too late. I think we can still do this. And I think there's an opportunity for us to rise again and have another go. It's not too late. So I just remembered I forgot to take my medication. I haven't read the novel. I'm planning to. But it looks like there's a house on Juna's land. And again, I'm not sure, but I think it might be an illegal betting house where Juna is gambling cards and getting drunk. And Juna instantly sees this young boy is brave and honest. And he recognises him straight away as his old good friend's son.
busy and I'm not drunk. Fact is, there's enough whiskey in the state of Georgia to get me drunk enough.
What a great line. It underlines a character who's lost. There ain't enough alcohol in this
Come on over here, take a seat.
whole county or town to get me drunk.
Young man bottle of knee high up.
Inspector, I could, as long as I take my money with me.
So I'm guessing they're getting the boy a non-alcoholic beverage now.
Now, the question on the table is how drunk is drunk enough? And the answer is that it's all a matter of brain cells.
Brain cells?
That's right, honey. You see, every drink of liquor you take kills 1,000 brain cells. But that doesn't much matter because we got billions more. And first the sadness cells die, so you smile real big. And then the quiet cells go, so you just say everything real loud for no reason at all. That's okay. That's okay because the stupid cells go next. So everything you say is real smart. And finally, come the memory cells. These are tough sons of bitches to kill.
Well, there's a golf match out at Crew Island between Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen. And there was a meeting to see who would stand up for Savannah in the match. So I said you would. That's why I'm here, so you can beat Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen.
Yeah, I'm a whole lot drunker than I thought.
I'll carry for you.
You gonna caddy against Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen?
Yes, sir. I'll carry for you, too. Aaron over there carry the clubs, I'll carry the ball. I'll carry them little wooden things.
Okay, so all of this is happening in the story, but at the same time, I would argue
I heard my dad tell how he won every golf tournament there ever was in the South.
that something else is happening at the same time.
They made you stop playing for 20 minutes just to measure it for a record. And how you swing righty, but you was in the woods once by this tree, and there was no room to swing righty. So you borrowed somebody's lefty club and hit the ball 6 inches from the hole.
It's time for you to go home, Marty.
It's time for you to go home, Hardy.
Beat yourself, because I'm going to bed.
So all of that really did happen. This young boy has barged in on a once great young man and has invited him to resume his path and to finish the journey to become great. And even though all of that is really happening, I'd also argue that what's also happening is that there's a part in us that doesn't forget all of the potential we've got and all the progress we've made towards that potential. And that was a bit too much too soon for Juna. That's why he tried to end the conversation, but the boy followed him into his house, and the local mayor and politicians, etc., are waiting.
So close to my home. So close to all our home.
And Juna's already said no. He's already refused the call in movie structural terms. And now he's been asked again by the local mayor, etc. And then we find out his doubts, and he admits it. He says, "I've lost my swing," or he believes he has lost his swing. You could call that extreme rustiness, but more importantly, he's lost his belief. He believes he's lost the talent he had.
I don't take no for an answer.
Well, you're going to have to, because I'm not playing. Now get out.
And I like that. The main character says no again. If he says no to this hopeful, passionate, brave, honest young boy, he's not going to be won over by a self-serving politician who's, I'd argue, almost certainly more lost than Juna is currently, which is saying a lot. But, maybe I'm wrong. And then Charlize Theron seems to just appear as if by magic, in the way that a divine being would appear, not the way that a human would enter a house.
He's not mine.
And the boy is asleep on the sofa while Juna carries on drinking. And now she has arrived, his estranged wife, to ask him again. So this is the third time he's been asked,
A little late to be out looking for romance, though, isn't it?
and he's refused the call to adventure twice. This is the third time he's being asked.
Would you play in the match if I had sex with you?
And now the inner child wakes up,
Yeah, that would do it.
but also you could say that really a young boy wakes up. So it's a little bit
We've seen each other since you've been back. I thought this was going to be a more difficult promise. So now
dodgy,
how would you like to do it?
but it is his inner child. So I'm pretty sure anyway, I think, but I might be wrong. So he's made a joke saying, if you have sex with me, then I'll enter the tournament. And she starts getting ready to have sex with him. And even though the young boy is awake,
We'd have to play many more tournaments.
Juna's saying he isn't. But again, in this scene, even if you don't agree with me in general, in this scene it clearly is his inner child.
Well, how
But
do you suggest we begin? Shall I just run and jump on you, or would you like some preliminary romance?
Romancing sounds good.
so
Very well then.
the self at this point, represented by Juna, is bluffing courage, but his anima, Charlize Theron's character, is far more brave than him, and she's calling his bluff. She's asked if he wants romance. He says, yeah. They begin kissing. And his hand goes travel up her arm, or maybe to her neck, I'm not sure, but then he clearly thinks better of it because the hand then drops. We see the first signs that he does want to return to who he was becoming, who he's meant to be, but he's not ready yet.
I haven't given the impression that I'm crying over us, Joe. Because I'm not.
But she is crying, but she's saying that she's not crying for the reason he thinks.
I'm crying over Savannah.
And she says she's crying over Savannah, not over their broken
And the pain of the people.
relationship. I'm crying over the pain of the people.
I am.
So her argument is
What would you take your clothes off for? Chattanooga?
she's doing what she's doing because she wants to inspire Savannah to not give up hope, to rise again.
Certainly has been a colossal waste of time.
And then he responds, what,
I didn't ask you to come here.
are you saying you've taken your knickers off because you're trying to be so brave, heroic and noble? And she's offended by that and she puts her clothes back on. Fair enough.
For yourself, a little golf might just do you some good.
But she's
I
right.
lost my swing, Adele.
She says he's being pathetic, and then he admits again, I've lost my swing. I've lost my swing, Adele.
Where'd it go?
Where'd it go? And he can't answer.
You can open your eyes now, Hardy. Your education is over. Go on home now.
And he sends Hardy home. But he said no for a third time. But he's seriously considering it now. He's about to drink some more alcohol, some more liquor, but then he rejects it. He puts it back down just as he's picking it up. Then he goes to find his golf clubs and goes out in the dead of night with a bright lantern, drops his golf clubs, picks one up that might do, and he's looking at it like he doesn't really, it's so far beyond riding a bike. On me. And he hits it, and it's obvious he doesn't hit it well. You know what, I'm going to pause it here. Back in a sec. Okay, so you can see where it's paused, and I'll do the 3, 2, 1 go when I return. Okay, so I just want to say a couple of things before I press play. And that is that I think this is a really excellent example of the part of most or the majority of movies, TV shows, stories, books, etc., novels. The main character is always referred to as the hero, but I think that's problematic in a sense, because I believe actually the main character is just that, the main character or protagonist. Their story is a big question. Can they become the hero of their own story? No one's automatically, sorry about my growling stomach, by the way. No one's automatically the hero in their own story. That is something which absolutely always has to be earned. I don't doubt you agree with that. Or I hope you do, but I think it's undeniable. But there's been a habit for a long time now to refer to the main character of a story or the protagonist as the hero. I think that's nonsense. Juna clearly had began initiating and actually had become some level of a hero of his own life, professionally, financially, romantically, but that's all gone. And at this stage of the story, the main character protagonist, they're being offered a great adventure, which is terrifying, scary, dangerous, or all of the above and other things, very possibly. But they say no because it's way above their abilities and their strength and their belief level. And so I think it's really great that he said no 3 times. On the second time he said no, he admitted that he's lost his belief in himself and that he believes he's lost his ability, his skill, his talent, and clearly also his confidence, because that's what he's really lost. But then after the third no, we see an important bit which we often don't see in movies, which is the main character, Juna, going through a process of discernment. So he finds his dusty old golf clubs, he goes out in the dead of night with a lamp, and he starts hitting balls, and not very well. But what he's really doing is he's questioning if even potentially he could muster the courage to take on this battle, whether he can grow to a level where he's worthy of the challenge, and whether he can actually become who he was meant to become, if he can get back on that path and prosper despite everything that's happened to him. Because I think it would be shit if in a story the main character, all flawed and afraid, is asked to go on a great adventure, and then they just very quickly say, yeah, all right. Because that's just poor for so many reasons, but it's important that we see him consider it, weigh up the pros and cons, because by hitting golf balls in the dead of night, he is considering giving up on giving up. He's considering letting hope, belief, drive, courage, resilience and relentlessness, like his estranged wife clearly has. He's basically considering getting on the path where he can potentially fulfill his potential, his fullest positive potential, basically. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so whether you're listening on podcast mediums or watching, I'm about to do my 3, 2, 1, go, and at the very beginning of the G sound, I will press play. I hope you don't have to pause it again or do some jiggery pokery and get to the same point as me. But I hope you do, because I want us to be at the same point. Okay, let's go for it. 3, 2, 1, go. Also, sorry about the stomach noises. I did make sure I ate before I start recording this, but I clearly didn't eat enough. But if it keeps happening, I'll move the microphone away a bit. Okay, so a mysterious character has walked out the darkness of Juna's land.
And the rest is tied feet. Taking in some of God's glories. Wow, what a night. I could have killed you out there. Oh, no, sir. See, I set myself directly in front of you. But judging by how you was hitting them balls, I figured that's why I'd be out of harm's way. Excuse me, sir.
So Juna says, I could have killed you. And Bag of Vance,
Grip. You want some food or something?
played by Will Smith,
Into the house, huh?
they said, no, you couldn't have done. I walked directly in your path. The way you're hitting them terribly,
Man's grip on his club, just like a man's grip on his world.
you're never going to hit me.
Is there something you want?
A man's grip on his club is like the grip on his world.
Well, there's a big match coming up. Mr. Jones, Mr. Hagan. Fella gonna be needing a caddy. You a caddy? Yeah, it depends. You a golfer? I don't need a caddy. I'm not playing. I don't play anymore at all. Oh. Oh, thank you, sir. I take you up on that food job for me. All right. Evening, sir. Mm-hmm.
So Bag of Vance,
No sense is all. Vance say he don't play no golf, yet he out here this shade of night hitting balls off in the dark where you can't even see him. Yeah, well, I've done things that made less sense. As we all have. For $5 guaranteed, I'm offering you my caddy services. For $5. You know the winner gets 10,000, the caddy's cut is 10% of that, so that's $1,000. I take $5 guaranteed. You don't want $1,000? You done already said you ain't even playing, and Lord knows how often you're gonna look if you do. So $5 guaranteed sound pretty good from where I'm sitting. Yeah, rhythm of the game, just like the rhythm of life. Hit.
so Bag of Vance has offered himself to be Juna's caddy,
Go ahead.
and he's clearly the mentor character, but he's also started by putting no pressure on him. But also we find how honest Juna is, because
Some folks say,
Bag of Vance has asked for $5 guaranteed pay at the end of the tournament.
folks say, you gonna hit the ball, you gonna dance with it.
And we find out Juna's honesty
Polish up the dancing, me and this guy with Tyler hit the ball.
because he responds that if I win, you'll get $1,000. Don't you want 1,000? And then Juna gets Bag of Vance to hit the ball, and he hits it
So, you're a golfer? No, I don't play golf.
like a world-class golfer. But then he denies that he's a golfer. He denies that he plays golf even.
The trick is to find your swing. What'd you say? You lost your swing.
Synchronous moment.
Go find it.
The trick is to find your swing.
Now, somewhere in the harmony of all it is,
And there's no way that Bag of Vance could know
was
what Juna said earlier yet. Said it twice,
all it will be.
that he's lost his swing. And he keeps putting balls in front of him. And each time,
I ain't seen a man hit a ball like that since the North-South Championship in 1916.
Juna hits it like a world-class golfer.
Played for 20 minutes to measure how far it went.
And now
Bag of Vance, the name?
Bag of Vance introduces himself formally just after letting him know that he has seen his potential and his great talent in the past.
That, they say, is how Bag of Vance became Juna's caddy.
And by action, we learn that Juna has accepted him as his caddy, as his mentor, because he keeps doing as he's told. And action is the only way we prove anything, I believe anyway. Now we've got our narrator as a young boy bragging that Juna is going to take part in this great competition. And then we see, while he talks to his two friends, his father, who's taken the job as a street cleaner, sweeper. And his father looks proud and happy to see his son, not embarrassed about the job. But the young boy is embarrassed of his dad. But again, I mentioned the fool archetype earlier. The boy doesn't know the reasons behind any of the actions of his father. And he reacts in a sort of gut reaction way, as a hell of a lot of adults still do. Right?
Playing your damn golf match.
and Juna storms into a city meeting at the Guildhall, and he announces he is going to compete. And then he more than heavily hints that his estranged wife offered him sex, and she denies that. And the local mayor and politician accepts Juna's acceptance. And then next scene, we have the two presumably world famous golfers appear in Savannah to great fanfare, and everyone dressing up in their best. And we see our narrator as a boy sat high in a tree, and Juna dressed up in his old, probably dusty suit and best attire.
He goes wherever Bobby Jones goes. And that's Walter Hagen's Vance, Bet Hammond. They say Hagen won't play without him. And that's Grantland Rice, the most powerful sports writer in the country. And he's staying at our boarding house because he's nobody's now.
And our narrator lets his friends know about a great sports journalist being there. I've totally missed who the other two were. I might be wrong, but I think they're journalists, but I'm also like top level for the top newspapers, but I might be wrong.
Mr. Jones has won 13 national championships, including 4 U.S. Opens and 5 U.S. amateurs. He has also won
So
all 3
this is essentially like a press conference and a public event
the first time in his
to announce the opening
won the Grand
or
Slam.
the imminent beginning
4 major golf
of this
championships
top
in a single year.
golf tournament. And Juna has that look on his face, what have I done? Because his estranged wife is underlying just how incredibly world-class both his competitors are. And one of them is also a scholar and a top-level lawyer. And Juna keeps looking back at his mentor, Bagger Vance, played by Will Smith, brilliantly. And Bagger Vance's reaction is, that's impressive.
Mr. Hagen has won 11 national championships, including 4 British Opens and 5 PGAs. And in one stretch,
So Juna's estranged wife is listing
2 straight professional championships.
again how decorated and amazing the Playboy golfer is, as well as the other top-level golfer. And Juna feels even more out of his depth because he would know who both of them are, I'm sure. And he didn't believe he could beat them with what he knew, but they are far more qualified and accomplished than he even knew. And Matt Damon demonstrates palpable and genuine fear on Juna's face. And now he's being announced at his hometown.
Mr. Juno won the Georgia Amateur at the age of 16, making him the youngest man to ever do so. And until he left for the wall, was considered the South's premier golfer. Mr. Juno returned from the wall a hero, decorated with the Medal of Honor for surviving the deadly mission in which most the rest of his company were tragically defeated.
Well, it makes you think twice about stepping on his ball, doesn't it, Bobby?
So we learn that Juna won the Medal of Honor for heroics, but also his estranged wife shows empathy when she looks at Juna, her estranged husband, as she has to announce, even though she doesn't want to, but clearly she's very honest, that all his platoon died apart from him. And then the Playboy golfer jokes that it makes, where he speaks to the other top-level golfer, it makes you think twice about stepping on his ball.
Surely some storm will brew.
And it's really sunny and there's a clear sky, and I love that Bagger Vance says there's a storm brewing. And we see Juna go back on his acceptance to the call to adventure. So in a way, even though he said yes after saying no 3 times, this is him saying no for a 4th time. I think 4 is a very important number when it comes to fulfillment of one's own positive potential in real life, but also in stories, fictional stories. So Bag of Ants just asked for his spare golfing shoes, and Juna said yes. And now Juna is quickly packed and he's driving away, he's running away. And Bag of Ants clearly can see things that haven't arrived yet because it's still clear and sunny. And he remarks again that there's a real storm brewing. And now one of, I think, the top journalist, the top sports journalist is going to stay in the spare room at our young narrator's house, which his father has made into a boarding bed and breakfast, which presumably he helps run along with his wife. And then we find out that this top famous journalist, sports journalist, has actually come to see Juna play. That's the one golfer out of the 3 who he's most interested in, because just like our narrator, he's seen the amazing potential of this golfer. So, okay, now Juna is running away, and all the local people who see him driving are showing him how much he's already inspired them and how much they're behind him and how happy they are that he's back and he hasn't given up. Or rather that he's given up, and he's trying to drive away or turn a corner, but then he gets mobbed and he can't even drive the car. Damn, he says, because he knows now if he changes his mind, he's going to break their souls, break their belief that he's only just begun reawakening. And then a storm quickly rolls in. The Bag of Ants said was rolling in, and there was no sign before. I'll just touch on briefly here that it's subtle, but Bag of Ants is a man. But I think, and I know enough about the Bhagavad Gita, but I need to reread it. I really can't remember loads. I need the bare minimum, but I'm pretty sure that Bag of Ants is a man, but he's also a representation of God, but probably more like an archetypal persona of God. That which, the persona of God, which wants to encourage our best potential.
Well, maybe I was, but I guess I just ain't got the nerve to ask you yet.
I ain't got the time to sit around and wait till you're done, so let's hear what I'm proposing. I'm assuming that just about the moment you get up the nerve to ask me, gonna be just about the same moment I decide I'm gonna tell you yeah. How that suit you?
That suits me just fine.
So our young narrator is hiding behind the tree, trying to build up the courage to ask Bag of Ants if he can carry the golf clubs. And I guess be like the second caddy, the caddy's assistant. I don't know what the actual term is. And so Juna has changed his mind again, and he's gone out in the rain and he's practicing because he has decided that he will compete. We will have to come to terms with our demons sooner or later, but only if we decide to, right? And Bag of Ants and our young narrator are waiting to get properly started with Juna, and Juna has gone to the opening ball, presumably to open the event the night before the tournament begins, I'm guessing. And Juna is having a drink. But you get the impression, or I do, that it's not that he has gone back to drinking all the time, it's just he's really nervous. But he seems fine, so I would assume that he has been brave to get tidied up and go. But he just needs a drink to quell his nerves a little bit, just one. And now his estranged wife asked to have a dance with him, and all the local press and photographers are there for the local newspapers, presumably national newspapers too.
Just pretend there's music. Keep going, keep going. Look right over here.
That's a lot of what the press is interested in, right?
Give me a smile.
The music has stopped, but they want to tell the story that they were dancing to music. That the host and the owner of this fabulous island golf resort, presumably she's had a photo with the other two competitors. Okay, and now we see the mentor, Vance, mentoring our young and old narrator.
Top golfers always tried to get a leg up in the competition by having the men they trusted most sneak onto the course at night and do their own measurements. So Bagger and I walked the course that night, measuring away. Bagger never wrote down a number. He filed it all in his head.
Is this a bad thing to do, though? Isn't this just doing your research and your due diligence and really getting prepared? I mean, I guess you could argue if you're two caddies, let's say, sneak into a golf course and do measurements and do some practice putting in order to advise their golfer. But if they all do it, if all of the golfers' caddies do it, then it's fair. But then it's hard work and preparation. I never thought about that either. Bagger's underlining that the grass points towards the sun. And so the ground is literally moving underneath the feet of the competitors, and they need to be aware of the nature of the terrain of which they're operating on. Do you think Bagger can win if he finds his authentic swing? Bagger answers our young narrator. Now he's getting the young lad to do practice putts. Inside each and every one of us is our one true authentic swing. It's unique to all of us. It seems quite clear to me that our authentic swing is just another way of putting or saying our own positive, fullest potential. And that's unique to all of us. And I believe that. And I love that Bagger says it's not something that can be learnt, that beautiful potential within you. It's actually a reality, he's saying. It can't be learned, it has to be remembered. And it can be remembered only by choosing that path again, practicing that path, taking the actions of that path, learning to love it again. This gives me shivers. The last time I watched this was one of the many bits of the film that made me cry. Will Smith's incredible in this film. It's all an approach of being in the moment, not indulging in creating fictional images or thoughts or worries. I think he mentions it a bit more later. It's about tuning into the field. And if that is how he puts it, it's about being here right now, not thinking about if I'm being boring for those listening, but just being here, enjoying the movie, which I mainly am. So it's the first day of the tournament.
People came from far and wide. There wasn't a room to be found in either boarding house or the Crew Island Hotel. The match had been designed as the ultimate championship. 36 holes on Saturday, followed by another grueling 36 holes close Sunday.
I thought it was 3 days. So 3 days of 36 holes. So they're actually playing 3 matches, 3 full matches on 3 days in a row. But I thought he just said 2 then. I think it's 3. 3 days in a row. Okay, so the Playboy, famous world-class golfer is late, and then he gets driven in by his chauffeur. Maybe a few minutes late, past the point they're meant to start. And if we're talking about Carl Jung, who's a greater candidate for the shadow character than the womanizing, fame-embracing golfer?
Ladies and gentlemen, by virtue of the draw, Mr. Jones will hit first, Mr. Hagan second, and then Mr. Juna.
Sorry. Apologies for that noise. Okay, so
And then suddenly, in that moment, I felt as if I could hear the earth breathing beneath me.
everyone feels nervous. It's one of those points. It's very easy to be in the moment then, when you're where you want to be and you're excited, but most of all, when you care. Okay, and we've got the lawyer, scholar, very admirable gent, who's a world-class golfer. I really do struggle with names, as you can tell, for the most part. I think it's an ADD thing, but I am doing my best to get better at that. Okay, so the first 2 have gone, and they've done an excellent first hit. Now it's Juno's go, and he's got a big crowd, and he hits the ball, and it's the best hit
Juna hit a promising opening drive, and I was
of the
sure
first
he was
3.
on his way.
And everyone's very happy about that, and his estranged wife is very happy, but kind of can't believe it. We see Bagger Vance walking along with Juna and the young
Just to the game of golf.
narrator.
Bobby Jones's swing was a study of grace in motion. He had a way of making the difficult shots look easy, and the easy shots look even easier.
So we learned that the scholar, lawyer, golfer
Hagan, on the other hand, hit
is
more bad shots
an
than
example
the
of
game
very
golf
hard work, left brain.
But Hagan had long ago learned one thing.
But the playboy
3 lousy shots and 1 brilliant shot.
will often have bad shots, but then he's just so confident that he's so talented that he'll make it up with his last shot, even if his first 3 are terrible.
Without wincing.
Okay, we just got a comment on how Junior's showing himself on the first day. And we see that as he hits it into the sand, Bagger Vance looks on the bright side. Well, you've hit the ball into the beach, but we've got lovely weather, and that's what you want for a beach. It's first bit of doubt from everyone, but they probably all felt it. They know he's not played for years. Have you got any ideas? He asks his mentor character, Bagger Vance. And Bagger won't help him. There's a time for mentors to help, and there's a time for them to let their mentee decide for themselves and be on their own. Has to be balanced out. Local politician not understanding how someone as talented as Juno could be holding the club in a way he can see is not correct. And we see he's right, because Juno then hits the ball, and the ball hits the tree.
By the end of 5 holes, Juno was 5 strokes behind with 67 holes to go. And things would have been a lot worse if it weren't for Juno's shot on the 6th.
So he got 5 shots behind them after 5 holes. But then on the 6th hole, when he hits the ball from the beach again,
It was a birdie, 1 stroke under par for the hole.
he was fortunate
Behind Jones and Hagen,
because the ball hits the
rubber for the entire
flag, and then he ends up getting a birdie.
Good news, Mr. Junior. Now all we got to do is figure out what game that is.
It's important to not get too confident too quickly, because that's normally cockiness.
the morning round, Jones and Hagen were neck and neck. And as for Juno,
This has become embarrassing.
Oh, no, sir. It's been embarrassing for quite some time now.
One of the things I love about Bagger Vance's character is that he is utterly honest. It's great that the main character, Juno, has recognised that things have potentially become embarrassing, but I like that Bagger says, "Oh no, sir, it's been embarrassing for some time now."
Make a suggestion to you.
What now?
Why don't you just hook it out of bounds? Yeah, just carve it out over them pretty trees into the ocean.
So the mentor can sense that the main character is,
You'd be so far out the match. I mean, we would just relax, enjoy ourselves rest of the way.
he can tell that his mentee is giving up bit by bit. And he says, "Why not just hit it into the lake and give up?" And that lights a fire within Juno.
Put yourself out your misery.
He doesn't understand this coaching approach by his caddy. And he shakes his head in bemusement. And he looks at where he's trying to hit the ball, then he looks at the giving up option, just hoofing it into the lake. And then he looks there again. And then he tries to hit it onto the green. But I think what was happening there is an indirect lesson of what you focus on is ultimately where your actions will land.
You want to quit, Mr. Junior? You can just go ahead and creep off somewhere. I tell folk you took sick. Truth be told, ain't nobody gonna really object. In fact, they probably be happy as bugs in a bake shop. See you pack up, going home. You know I can't quit. I know. Just making sure you know it too.
I think Bagger, as the mentor, is trying to say, if you're going to fight, don't phone it in. Don't just suffer. Fight. And he's indirectly helping him realize that he doesn't want to quit. And then he gives it some fight. But you can only fight in a positive, earnest, sincere way, one moment at a time, right?
I want an explanation. It better be a good one. What in God's green earth are you telling him?
So I sure be most appreciative we talk about this a bit later. Right now, I'm busy assisting Mr. Junior.
Well, you have done a hell of a job with so far.
Let me talk to you. Listen. Mr. Vance, I think what the judge is trying to determine here is what exactly your strategy is for helping poor Mr. Junior find his game, because to the untrained observer, it appears you know as much about being a caddy as I do about driving a locomotive.
Oh, y'all want to know my strategy? Well, right now my player's a little confused about who he is. See, he still thinks he Randolph Jr.
He is Randolph Jr., you damn twit.
Well, he is in the end.
Brilliant. He knows they won't get it, but he's saying, first things first. If he's going to have any chance at becoming who he was always meant to become, the first thing to work on is to help him remember who he is. because there's a bit too much assumption, a bit too much arrogant assumption. Not loads, but too much. It takes a lot of work and sacrifice and suffering to get good at anything. And if you've been gone a long time, especially if you do your job or follow your path with a lot of pressure and it's a performative thing, it's a great trial. And there's no point in him doing this unless he rediscovers why he wanted to become a golfer. And I love this moment. The golfer / lawyer just pats June on the shoulder and says, "It will come." He's saying so much there. He's saying, "I believe in your talent, and you've shown enough for me to let you know that I can see enough similarity in my path as your path. Don't give up hope. You got this. Just keep going."
Learned how to do everything with his left arm. At his shell, he was changing the wheel on the wagon. The axle snapped, chopped off his left arm, so he learned how to do everything with his teeth. It's a mistake. One night he said some things to Mr. Johnny he shouldn't have said. Mr. Johnny knocked all the teeth out of his head. So he learned how to do everything with his feet. Up till he got this fungus. It grew all up the stop. I'm trying to tell you a story about overcoming adversity. So you want to talk to me about my grip? Fine. Talk to me about my swing? Fine. You don't want to hear about the fungus? I mean, he became a dancer. Oh, he made a fortune. It was the most amazing thing to see this armless, toothless man sliding back and forth across the stage to the music of Bessie Smith and the Duke. I don't care if I'm 12 strokes back. I just don't. You don't even want to win? It's just a game. Ah, yes, sir. You done said it yourself now. That's a game. So maybe, just maybe, there's something else that's riling you. Maybe you thought you was just going to sashay out onto that green and the old hero of Savannah just reappeared all by itself. Don't work that way, is all. The
Nope.
dude you was, you ain't never going to be again. Ever. That's all I'm saying. You don't know a damn thing about me. Well, I know one thing for sure. You don't look pretty foolish tromping out there with two different shoes on your feet.
Yeah, Junior is so...
Let me tell you something. There's no difference between winning and losing, and anything in between. What's lost is lost. A man lives, a man dies. And in the end, it all turns out the same. You're alone. And that's all you're ever going to be.
That a fact. Alone. So a soul is born with everything that the Lord can give it, and things don't go its way, so it just gives up, and the good Lord just takes everything back. And then the soul dies alone. But that's pretty much what you said?
That's right.
That's a sad story, Mr. Jimmy.
Yes, it is.
And that's just about the dumbest thing I heard any fool say ever. You got yourself a hard eye there, Mr. Jenner. Soul is born with everything, don't look dies, and good Lord.
That scene
Funny man, Mr. Jenner.
happens in every well-written story. It's the thematic debate. One character states what they think life is all about, and therefore the story, and then another character disagrees and might go into detail, but Bagger has just said that's nonsense, what you're saying.
Well, there's still 3 rounds to go, and that's 54 holes. All he's got to do is pick up one stroke every 4 holes and he wins. Well, it's possible.
Well, it's possible, son, but it's not very likely. I mean, I've been told that Junior has shown no signs of getting his game together. And he's playing Bobby Jones and Walter Hayden.
What do you know? You can't even get yourself a decent job. Marty!
So again, the fool archetype in the young boy narrator, and he is frustrated with his dad's realism that statistically, even though there's only one day gone, Junior has to catch up and he's 12 strokes behind.
Something you want
And the fool archetype doesn't want to hear that. The fool wants to believe victory can happen no matter what, or no matter how things are going.
There is a purpose to this visit, and that's to apologize.
And now Juna's
But I'm not a naturally apologetic woman, so it takes me a little longer to get my thoughts in order.
estranged wife is
I want to see
visiting him,
for having gotten you into this golf match.
trying to inspire
It
him.
seemed that what I did was ill-intentioned because it was not.
What exactly are you apologizing for?
For publicly humiliating you?
Well, that'd be a good thing to apologize for.
However, I think that basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm sorry. But it's not my fault. You're the one to blame.
That's one hell of an apology, Adele.
I'd stop the tournament in a flash if I could. I truly, truly would. Because I know it's just going to get worse. And the way you're playing, you're simply destroying any chance Jones and Hagan have of playing well. And your supporters, who are every man, woman, and child in Savannah, are so demoralized that they can barely hold down their lunches. So, you want my apology or not?
Juna is flabbergasted because his estranged wife, and before that his mentor, his caddy, are trying to inspire him, motivate him,
That's the June I know. Just full of little surprises.
but it's not working.
What was it, Adele? What did you like about us?
What did you like about us when we were lovers, husband and wife?
I like the way we dance.
I liked the way we danced. I don't know, but I think that is an all-purpose analogy
What's your problem?
that she loved the way they danced in every way,
You were just looking at me like I was stupid or crazy or something.
sexually,
That you could be
as
both
friends,
Walter Hagen being
on a day-to-day basis.
And look, I told him all you had to do was pick up one stroke every 4 holes for the next 54 holes, right?
Yeah, right.
And who do you think was telling me what a hopeless case you was to lose?
And now the fool archetype, the inner child, is trying to motivate
He's right.
the self.
He was a good friend.
And that's interesting. Because he's being honest, saying, they don't believe in you, but I do.
In the middle of Savannah.
And my dad said he used to be
Everybody could see him.
your best friend.
Her friend, and everybody.
You feeling
And
sorry for yourself?
we see a bit of belief coming back from Juna when he says he's right. He told the truth. We were great friends.
Wilbur Charles's dad can't
So he hasn't given up on
but he
himself yet.
to do nothing at all and something but he can't.
And now our narrator is lambasting his father.
It ain't time for me to grow up, Mr. Junior.
Your daddy's out sweeping the streets because he took every last dime he had and used it to pay up every man and woman he owed and every business who worked for him instead of declaring bankruptcy like everyone else in town, including your best friend, Wilbur Charles's dad, Raymond, which is why he's able to sit around all day long in his dignity.
What a twist.
Your daddy stared adversity in the eye, Hardy, and he beat it back with a broom.
So now we learn something that Juna knows, that actually Hardy's father is a true hero. Instead of filing for bankruptcy, he took every penny he had so that he could pay all of his employees. And that's why he's been forced to rent out a room or two in his house and sweep the streets. Because he wouldn't selfishly
You really think so?
Ask anybody.
force his employees into poverty.
Green, green grass, and it's just you and the ball. And there ain't nobody to beat up on but yourself. Just like Mr. Noonan keeps hitting himself in the golf club every time he gets angry. He's broken his toe 3 times on account of it. This is the only game I know you can call a penalty on yourself. If you're honest. Which most people are. There just ain't no was a game like it.
You better get going.
So in the same dressing room, Vance was trying to teach or tell Juna about adversity, but it fell on deaf ears. But then unintentionally, the inner child has reminded him something he knows about adversity, how his young caddie's father dealt with it. He covered himself in glory and he didn't tell anyone about it. He just did all he could to save and support his employers and everyone he owed money to, I think.
The greatest game there will ever be. Just you and the ball. All by your lonesome.
I think it's time, the mentor says.
See the field.
It's time for you to see the field.
I see the field, but it's 445 yards.
Meaning lies behind the words, though. What you're looking at in a lazy fashion is not the field. I think he's referring to connecting with maybe a higher dimension. Or you could put it as a positive frame of mind that children, it comes quite easy to. They're just in the moment. They can enjoy and play and not think. What's the field? Tuna asks. Learn by example. So he's saying before you can connect to the field, you have to see someone who has become a master, who has learned how to do it, and watch him. And he's gone from just having a conversation, and then his focus narrows. And I've seen this before with people, mainly actors probably. He's getting into performance mode, but he's also warming his body up. He's reconnecting with the muscle memory that connects his mind with why he loves what he does. He loves the game. He loves becoming proficient at this sport, this game. And that's how you can deliver the perfect shot. You have to connect with everything authentically. Because he just wants to love what he does. And he works on it enough, but it's not work to him. And it's connecting with the inner child. He's just in the moment. Synergizing. You have to love it. You have to maintain it in order to synergize with who you are, what you do. You have to enter the doorway of enjoyment. And my neuropsychologist taught me about that a few years ago.
I can't take you there, Junior. Just hopes I can help you find a way.
We know that saying, don't we? It's a term of respect when you talk about someone and say they are real.
That ball, that flag,
And he's talking about the authentic swing.
seek it with your hands. Don't think about it. You're looking at it, Junior. Feel it.
But if you want to earn the authentic swing
That flag,
and get back on that path where you can become whatever you're called upon to become, you have to become authentic. You have to love it. So that's the only way to become one with it, as Vance is touching on. It's the flow state, but it's the ascending flow state. When you commit to a lifelong journey of being an artist, creator, sports person, whatever it is. There's only one way, the right way. And the right way will manifest in a unique way for each person. But I think it begins with remembering times that you loved doing. When you remember what you love doing about that path that you tell yourself you want to be on, or that you need to be on. And so we see Juna connect with the field, the flow state.
Is a blur. Juna kept asking question after question about the field, while Bagger just acted like nothing much had happened and kept making remarks about how much Hagen's socks must have cost and how long to drive to Bacalise before they make a good smoke.
So Bagger is the good mentor. Juna
But somehow, in the middle of it all, Juna started playing golf.
has found his authentic swing, at least for a while. And he's demonstrating his sincerity by asking question after question after question to his mentor, his caddy Bagger Vance. But Bagger is keeping him in the moment. He's just changing the subject. So now Juna has caught up 4 strokes. He's caught up 4 strokes on them. And the crowd have been loving him today. So now we have potentially the shadow character, probably the playboy golfer, joins him at the bar, Juna. That's a big part of the art of anything, the entertainment value. But it's far from all of it.
We'd have some good matches. I'd expect to win, of course. But then we'd split the money 70-30 afterwards. You get the 30. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not just looking for another payday here. I couldn't breathe if it weren't for this game of golf. I've once had the next king of England hold the pin for me while I putted. Did you know that? I did. Yes, I paid back everything the golf gave me.
Oh, he's definitely the shadow. He's a shadow character for sure. And he's appealing to the shadow in Juna. He's saying, I'll make you rich if you agree to lose every match. And I'll give you 40% of the money.
I've got no illusions that there's anything out there really worth getting riled up about. The meaning of it all is that there's no meaning.
And he's agreeing with Juna's perspective on life yesterday. That there's no meaning in life.
I admire the way you're dealing with this match, Juna. Fighting the way you are is damn noble. But no matter how good a fighter you are, just remember, I can ask the king to hold the flag for me when I putt, but he's not going to give me his crown. Neither is Bobby, and neither am I. I'm not asking for your crown, Walter. If I wanted it bad enough, I'd just tell you.
Yeah. So the shadow playboy golfer is saying to Juna, don't get arrogant. You're never going to be as good as me or the other opponent. We're not going to give you our crown. And then Juna says, if I want your crown bad enough, I won't want you to give it to me. I won't need you to. I'll just take it. Also, that playboy golfer demonstrates a shadow, a negative, a toxic version of what Bagger Vance was saying earlier. That it's just a game. But the playboy character is saying that it's just a game and it's a trivial game. It doesn't fucking matter. But Bagger Vance is clearly saying, I think, what Alan Watts used to talk about, that life is a game, but it is not trivial. It matters. But if you want to play this game beautifully, you've got to find that middle ground. Because there you can be strong, you can be good, you can be your best, you can put in the most effort. It's not about winning, it's about becoming the best potential self you could be. That's what I believe currently anyway. So Juna goes to find the anima, his estranged wife, and he kisses her.
I'm 8 strokes
and he's overflowing with belief now. It's a bit it's misguided, but it needs to pass, but it's important.
Yes, I should go back to my guest.
Even misguided belief is important for a bit. He's misusing this new strong belief. They both missed the way they danced together in every single way when they were together. But you hope later on that he'll see that the truth is he knows he can become one of the greatest golfers of his time. And he has control over that as long as he commits to continually growing and doing things the right way and for the right reasons. But he can't control if he wins this tournament or any tournament, because there are other variables. And that's the ego. Taking too much territory. I think the ego is essential, but I think the ego should be a board member, never the head of the board, to keep it positive, or to get it positive and then keep it that way. So, because I think the ego wants to sit in the crown, in the throne rather. Okay, so another beyond world class hit from Juna, who looked as surprised as everyone. So we saw Vance looking a bit doubtful there. Hardy moved the post, the flag.
Picking up 2 strokes on the very first hole.
So he's caught up 2 strokes in the first hole because he got a hole in one, I think.
And he picked up another stroke when Jones bogeyed the second.
And so his amazing form is putting off his opponents a bit, it looks like.
Hagen when he double bogeyed the third.
That's the problem with attachment. Or if there's too much ego, clearly his opponents were too sure that they were going to keep enough of a lead, and he improved too much too soon. And then they start making mistakes. Because most of us, as well as we're doing, we can always improve upon this. I don't know if that's true. I think it's probably true most of the time. But I think we can get to a place where we're not thinking in an unhealthy fashion. Because I certainly did when I was a young child. So why couldn't I get back to it conceivably at some point in adulthood? Why couldn't you? Why can't any of us? We definitely can. It's all about deciding to try, and then trial and error, and committing to that, and returning to that path till we work out how to do it. And then once we know how to do it, we need to maintain it. Maintain everything that's good about the foundations. And now the populace of Savannah, their belief is overflowing just like Juna's belief is. Okay, so our narrator's dad has been let know that we're all going to watch, because it looks like a miracle is on its way to happening, perhaps. But just in case it is, let's go and witness this. And we know scientifically that audiences do experience the same adrenaline rushes as the teams, competitors that they're behind. And I guess maybe Vance might say that part of that is tuning into the field from enjoying the beautiful game played by another. Or he might say that that's really what you're enjoying, is being at one via this very specific way, if you happen to love golf.
Discovered new hazards of their own.
Pardon me.
Juna had discovered, as Bagger so eloquently put it, how to stop thinking without falling asleep. Juna finished the third round one stroke behind. It was a new match, and no one knew it better than Jones and Hayden.
So Juno's just one stroke behind now, because, as our narrator points out, he has stayed in the flow state and stayed just enjoying being in the flow and enjoying the art of good form and the love of the game he is now rediscovering. He certainly...
Don't believe Walter planned on exerting himself. It was fun this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
This is my last match, June. I'm retiring.
You're at the top of your game.
Well, I've got a wife and 3 small children in a law practice. It's time to stop. It's just a game, June. You know, I'll never forget you winning the Georgia Open in 1916. I'd never seen a swing so sweet. Oh man, get so much pleasure from it. This is my last 18 holes, June. And I've been thinking I couldn't have picked a better way to end it.
Thank you, Bob.
It is truly my pleasure.
Well, I can't let you win out of sympathy. You know that.
I do. And there's no intentions of losing my last match.
I think that golfer represents a few things, one of which is the left brain, hard work, diligence, earnest, sincerity. When that mentality that's needed to become amazing at anything. And then he says that he's about to retire. Now, his character actually is, but on a symbolic level, at a certain point, your initiation has to end when you become great at something. And indirectly, I think it's underlining that Juna is focusing on the wrong thing still, winning a tournament, but he's actually restored his world-class level. So he doesn't need the training wheels anymore. So symbolically, that competitor might underline that part of him, maybe.
As a woman waiting with no end in sight, wondering if she's remembered or forgotten by the man she loves. You never even said you were sorry. And now I'm supposed to just run into your arms and melt like butter on a hot muffin?
I'm sorry. I am truly sorry.
It's too late for I'm sorry, Juna.
Then tell me what to say. It was too long ago.
It was just a moment ago.
That's deep.
Did something happen since we talked last night?
We were together a long time ago.
No.
And I always shiver when she responds.
Think of.
No, it wasn't. It was just a moment ago.
Well, this is barely the place to talk about it.
Deeply significant
Back to your game.
points in our life, no matter how long ago they actually were. It almost feels like on some level, it was just a moment ago. There's also certain hints. Probably it plays a bigger part in the Bhagavad Gita itself, which this story is inspired by and based on in its own way.
Snow was playing a fierce fourth round.
But there's lots of hints of
Now thought began to percolate through the crowd.
not just
Gina could win.
the godlike elements beyond the fabric of life, but also reincarnation. So I think that's one part of what his estranged wife is saying.
I'm gonna hug the left, get there in two, and close the door on these guys.
I think.
Pull yourself now. We got 4 more holes to go. You can settle down a little bit. I've never been more settled. And even when this thing is over.
The inner mentor always needs to stop us getting ahead of ourselves. He's so overconfident, June, he wants to rush his victory. That has to be arrogance. Even if it started in a good place. So he's going for an incredibly ill-advised shot because he's so sure he'll make it, but it ends up in the sand or in the beach, as Bag of Vance puts it. But yeah, there's no need to go into the whole reincarnation thing really, because that would be more relevant to the Bhagavad Gita, as I said. But I think just to finish that point, that his estranged wife is saying that it can never be that long ago because we're always each other's love interest in this lifetime or in any lifetime. I think anyway, but I will watch this film again in an episode of this. Probably a few times over the years. But films I really love, I plan to do at least 4 or 5 rewatches. And, it will be watch along with Meaning Seeker, #2, #3, etc.
I don't care if it's Apollo, son of Zeus. That ball won't clear the water.
I hope you're all paying customers.
So he's going for an even more impossible shot, and Bag of Vance looks dejected, a bit frustrated. And it could not have been a worse shot. It couldn't even clear the knoll or hillock. Okay, he's experiencing a bit of a wake-up call now. And Bag of Vance is waiting for him to re-enter a state of mind where he can actually get through to him. There's no point talking to him there's no point talking to people when they can't listen. And he's stumbled from the flow state into some form of a delusional state. There's so many different forms of delusion, aren't there? And he is waking up from it slowly. And it's the form of waking up from a delusion, which is commonly referred to a lot of the time as the school of hard knocks. Because this next shot ends up in the lake. Okay, I'm going to stop it there for a second. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause. Really need a wee. I'll resume and just edit it together as quickly as I can. Seamlessly as I can, rather. Apologies. I've just been eating a couple of figs. Got really hungry. Apologies earlier that I didn't give much warning. I should have done a 3, 2, 1 pause earlier, but sometimes we get caught off guard. Just how much we need to go for a piss, basically. Right, I need to close the living room door again, and then when I come back, we'll do the 3, 2, 1 play. Let's go for it. 3, 2, 1, play. So I guess that's an example of commencing play in a fair manner by dropping the ball behind you.
Ball, it was as if every heart in Savannah dropped with it. None landing harder than his own.
We've seen it before in sports, in real life, haven't we? As a British person, Andy Murray, before he eventually won Wimbledon, one of the Grand Slam tournaments, when you get all excited, you think something which perhaps is an analogue to a miracle is going to happen, but then I suspect what stops that happening when it doesn't happen after it looks like it will is that person, the competitor, gets in their own head. And then before long, a 180 swing happens from beautiful, magnificent, artistic, masterpiece level flow to everything not going very well, the person not playing well, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be sports, could be acting, could be anything, could be numerous other examples. So now Junior's hit the ball into the woods as things go from bad to worse. And this is the point of the dark night of the soul, where he feels that all is lost. At this part in the story, and he's starting to have he's remembering his PTSD from the war. And the process which began him giving up on life after he realised the reality, the truth of how scary and how horrifying it can be. And he starts to shake, and he's post-traumatic stress is triggered. And I can't tell if he was about to give up or cheat. But last time I watched it, I thought he was going to cheat, and Bagger starts talking to stop him from doing whatever he was about to do. On me.
No, you don't.
On me.
What I'm talking about is a game. Game that can't be won. Only played. You don't understand? I don't need to understand. When a soul on this entire earth ain't got a burden to carry, he don't understand. You ain't alone in that. But you've been carrying this one long enough. Time to go home, lay it down.
He's saying we've all got great burdens that no one else could understand. And he's suggesting that there comes a time when we should let go of it or begin to heal from it. And that, Juno, you have the option.
Right back to where you always been, and then stand there. Still. Real still. And remember, it's too long ago. Oh no, son, it was just a moment ago.
Any beautiful moment wasn't ever long ago.
Have you come on out the shadows, Junior?
Especially if it's a place where time doesn't exist.
Time for you to choose.
At the very most, it could only be a moment ago, arguably, couldn't it? Time for you to choose.
Yes, you can. But you ain't alone. I'm right here with you.
You're loved, you're supported, but only you
All alone.
can fulfill who you're gonna be. Do you choose hope and the hard way,
Play the game.
or despair, which is the easy way, but it isn't the easy way? It lies that it is.
You come into this world. You ready?
Great adversity will make any of us pause, or maybe even think we have given up. But you can always return. He hasn't lost
Strike that ball, Junior. Don't hold nothing back. Give it everything.
any of the spark that he had.
Let yourself remember. Remember your swing.
He needs to remember that he loves this. He loves being part of this.
Now is the time, Junior.
Remember, it's not about winning. re-enter your love of the play, the moment, re-enter the field, re-enter the flow. And you can fulfill your great potential and you can inspire others. We know that's why Juna ultimately did embrace this great trial, because he wanted to inspire others. Well, that's what made him actually rejoin the path of hope and potential and fulfillment of positive potential. And of course, Bag of Vance's anecdote about adversity earlier was Bag of Vance saying, claiming, via example, I believe anyway, and this has been my own experience, that adversity shows itself in the way it acts and its effect on us, that it is a great enemy, but I actually think its purpose is to be a great friend.
By the 17th, Juna
How else would we be inspired to grow stronger in our mind and soul and drive to act in the way that we want to become? I don't know if you just saw that, but my battery's getting low on my iPad. I have got hopefully that's okay. Put it on battery saver mode. I have got a 4K camera, but I felt like sound quality is more important for people who watch this, but it is 1080p. But yeah, let me know in the comments if anyone thinks I should utilize my camera instead.
This is when a man needs pals in the Mermaids Union.
I just feel like, but then I might have made a mistake with the sound, with the TV being too loud. Let me know about that too, and I'll get things as balanced and as palatable for you, the people that listen or enjoy this and subscribe, etc., as soon as I can. So bear with me, but any help or advice or pointers would be much appreciated. Thanks in advance. Hopefully my battery will last till the end of the film. So the sun's close to setting and they're getting close to the end of the match. And Juna is doing well again because he's got the right mindset. He's loving the game and loving lending his talent and his passion for the game to the game. And as Bag of Vance said, this is a game which cannot be won. It can only be played. And I could not agree more with what I understand of that. Because personally, I feel like we can all fulfill our positive potential. No one's against us. The only real adversity is ourselves. I'm not even sure if I see it that way anymore. I just want to keep improving. I do keep improving. Normally not as fast as I'd like, but I also believe that progress is a slow process because it must be a slow process. As frustrating and as much as we'd like it not to be that way often. So I love that everyone pitching in, bringing their cars nearby and putting their headlights on. As all the players are happy to play on, but they need light. Everyone pitching in, helping. And I love the Playboy guy having finished his cigarette and hitting the ball just before the water hits his ball. Don't hold nothing back. Okay, so there were some reeds or bits of leaves in front of the ball, and accidentally Juna pulled one of them out of the way. It was fine, but another one moved the ball, caused the ball to move by, it looked like maybe a quarter of an inch, a third of an inch, maybe half an inch.
I have to call a stroke on myself.
And he's telling his caddy team, I have to call a stroke on myself. I have to add a point,
Don't do it, please.
a stroke.
Don't do it. Only you and me seen it, and I won't tell a soul. Cross my heart.
And Hardy,
Nobody gonna know.
as the inner child, says no one's going to know. And Juno's right, I will. And so will you.
Got to tell us
You
what
can't
to do,
win
Bagger.
if you cheat.
Stupid rule that don't mean nothing.
You can't win if you're not honest either.
No one wanted the penalty assessed, not even Jones and Hagen.
I love that.
This was no way to win a match.
Maybe you're mistaken, Juno.
They don't want to win it this way either.
Before you touch the impediment. Might not have moved at all. The light plays funny tricks this time of day.
And they both make good points.
Seems to have moved if it leaves its original position in the least degree, but not if it merely oscillates and comes to rest in its original position. Is she different?
None of them want him to add a stroke.
Sometimes the ball will shudder and then settle back again, June.
And they're all urging him to take the easy option.
The ball's here, and a rover here.
So he's saying it moved to 2 or 3 inches then. He's sticking to the rules. He's being honest and true.
Hit it quick, old boy, before you have time to think about it.
He's prioritizing that. And such admiration from the left-brained character, the lawyer. But also he's not happy about it, but he respects the hell out of him for it. The integrity of being honest is the important thing. That must always be maintained.
Yes, I am.
Bagger Vance says he's leaving.
I need you.
I need you.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Not no more.
Not no more.
There's a small matter around about $5.
$5.
It was guaranteed.
So I say that 4 is important, a symbolic number for fulfilling your positive potential, but clearly the writer, author, Stephen Pressfield, thinks it's 5, and actually I think he's right. But I think you hit your fullest potential around 4, but when you hit 5, you're in the zone where you have fulfilled your greatest potential. But that territory doesn't end though,
Man is yours, Hardy. Take him on in.
because we can never be perfect. But how much fun would that be to travel as far and for as long as possible in the realm of
For a little while.
fulfilling your potential? You've already fulfilled it, but you can only add to it.
You told it real straight now, yeah?
But what if something comes up? And I don't know what to do.
I've got a feeling you figured it out. But I'll be seeing you.
Bagger's telling the inner child that he believes in him. And he's basically saying to both of them, there comes a time where you needed a mentor, but only so that you can become your own mentor.
He needs you, Baggy. You're the only chance he's got. You have to stay.
I think that's true for all of us.
Walk out of here like this, you'll never caddy in Georgia again. I'll personally see to it. You hear?
And so yeah, Bagger got his symbolic $5. $5 for 5-dimensional growth for Juna, or rather that he helped Juna enter the territory of fulfillment of potential, which doesn't end, it just continues as long as you keep maintaining that journey until the day Juna dies. It's the last shot, I think.
I can't hit it any better than that.
And the ball lands very close to the hole. And it's obvious he's in the right place, Juna, now. But you can see some sorrow that this great adventure's imminently going to end. fucking love this film.
I always thought so.
Great match. I always thought so. His estranged wife said, which is her basically saying,
Hagen and Jones
I'm open to resuming our relationship as long as you apologize
sank their putts. Juno would lose.
and maintain all the balance and do all the things that you need to do. 5% left the battery.
The night air's gotten colder. My guess is put layer of dew on the warmer grass, which is gonna slow your ball down.
So the caddy, the junior caddy, is demonstrating that he has learned all he needed to from Bag of Vance. And Junior says, go and stand with your dad as I finish this great journey. And he's doing it to honour the young boy, our narrator, so that the young boy can do what he wanted to do and honour his father, because he knows his father now. So the Playboy golfer was hoping he could finish and win. And he's got an extra shot and he didn't want it. But he's made it. And now it's just Juna and our example of admirable mastery. It's his last shot. Will it go in? It looks like it might. The flag's been taken out. Just missed by maybe half an inch before curling out a little bit. Interesting. I imagine I'm going to have to end this episode as the film ends, if I'm lucky. But I'll just charge up my iPad and finish it off shortly if needs be. We just got to do what we got to do when we got to do it, right? Okay, now Juna's measuring, and as part of enjoyment, he's letting his flow, his focus connect with his deep understanding of the game. The time of day, the dew, where the grass will lean. And now his focus is on the ball. And honouring the field, honouring the flow state and the love of the flow state by constantly returning to the ritual. For doing things the right way is a ritual, even if it becomes part of our positive, good, habitual way of being. But that's fucking great, isn't it? I really believe we can all get there. If we choose to. We just have to keep choosing to. So he's in the flow state and he's about to take that final shot and everything's disappeared. It's just him, the hole, the flag, and his caddy holding the flag. And he putts. It rolls down the slope and it goes towards the hole and it goes straight in. And the inner child is gleeful, jumping up and down. All the people of Savannah are too. We see Bag of Vance walking as the sun has just set. And he knows that Juna has done incredibly well to finish. And he does a little jig and a dance in Savannah. You know, and when someone does rise, it's proof in action that we can all rise. If someone can do it the right way, get in the right mindset, the right habits, etc., so can we all. We've all got a unique way of doing it, and we might have lots of blockades that we would never have suspected, but mountains are there to be climbed. They're not there to to make us give up. I like the three competitors standing as equals there at the end. So Juna
That was the last
being
match the
honourable and
competition
honest
ever played.
meant that they drew. It was a draw.
On, Walter Hagen played only exhibition matches.
So no one lost, no one won, but they all played. Back to Bag of Ants. And then we see that
Randolph Juna and Adele Invergordon
Juna and Adele got back together,
did have that dance.
and they did have that dance. And I think what that means is, in time, their relationship came as balanced and beautiful and meaningful in each and every way as its potential showed long ago.
And me, well, it seems like yesterday I used to see old guys like me wonder why they still bothered with this crazy game.
The narrator, now an old man, feels like maybe his heart attack's passed and it's not a heart attack. And he said it feels like a moment ago that he was a boy.
It doesn't matter.
But maybe it was a moment ago.
It's a game that can't be won, only played. So I played.
Life is a game that cannot be won, it can only be played.
Moments yet to come.
And so he played. And he played for all the moments yet to come. And connecting with the field. And I think the suggestion is that the heart attack's not over, he's died, and Bag of Ants is waiting for him. Because Bag of Ants is that avatar, that manifestation of God, which he knew well, even though he would have just thought it was a man back then. I'm not saying it wasn't, that Bag of Ants wasn't just a man, but I am saying that Bag of Ants was also more than a man. He was a persona of God. Robert Redford directed this. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please, actually, I better just stop so that we don't lose the recording. Please, this goes to all podcasts. If you just it takes 30 seconds to press the like button or give 5 stars on one of the podcast audio only mediums. Also, putting a comment can just be 1 emoji, 2 emojis, 1 word. Hitting subscribe and the notification bell, in all its manifestations on any podcast or video platform is a massive help. And I would ask you a big favor now. Not only does it help me massively if you just take 20 to 30 seconds every episode I upload to hit the thumbs up or 5-star option or whatever stars you think this content is worth. A little comment, post a little comment too. Make sure that you are subscribed and that you go for all notifications. Now, you don't have to stick with all notifications, but what I'm asking you at this point is please just give me a few weeks. And if after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks you think, actually, I don't want a notification that there's a new Meaning Seeker episode every week, but you might find that you would like that. But if you don't, just change it to whatever you want. Maybe you'd prefer 1 notification a month, just so you remember that this podcast exists. And also please share it to anyone you know who might like to just listen to this podcast via audio podcast platforms or via any of the video, to anyone you know who might like me. I'll only mention anything personal about myself when it's relevant. But I'm not going to have the energy to promote this or share it as far and wide as most creators can and do. So it will depend a lot on the modern day version of word of mouth. So if you find you like this podcast and you want it to carry on, then instead of 20 to 30 seconds an episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could give me 40, 45 seconds, 50 seconds per episode. But anyway, I'm going to shut up about that.